So Debbie, since you've worked through the pandemic, we hear about these vaccine reactions. Now, a lot of us are wondering, are they rare? Are they common? Which is it? Because we're hearing one thing from the government and another thing entirely from the TGA's records, though, as Senator Malcolm mentioned, they're refusing to acknowledge the legitimacy of. So could you, as an ICU and ED nurse who's likely seen a lot of stuff, could you comment on that for us?
This is really interesting because right now, as you ask me that question, I can actually feel my heart racing because I'm speaking out right now the stuff that you guys don't know about. Reactions are catastrophic. There are thousands of them. There are heart attacks. There are blood clots. People are having to have limbs removed as a result of the blood clots. There is an increased number of stillborn babies, of babies with all kinds of horrendous Cancer is on the rise. People who have been in remission from cancer, now it's coming back with a vengeance.
It is not a vaccine!
It is not a vaccine. We have had so many adverse reactions. Since I spoke on stage at the march on Saturday, I've had people contact me and I have cried so much. I don't give a shit about my career and the money and all of that. I am here for humanity. I am making a stand.
Meanwhile, the National Employers Association of South Africa, along with other business organizations, have come out against mandatory vaccinations. NIASA is in favor of campaigns that promote voluntary vaccinations and also support the end of all lockdowns. But to help us understand the association's take, we are now joined by NIASA's Chief Executive, Gerard Papenfusch. Gerard, a good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I think a great place to start is this letter that you've essentially written to the presidency asking for really this decision or this conversation to be looked at. You say the president said broad agreement on the need for such measures, a state-driven policy of mandatory vaccination is there. Right, so the president essentially says there is a broad agreement from organizations and companies in the country that we need to move towards mandatory vaccination. You say that's not correct?
Well, the business. My apologies. The president is talking about the companies involved in Business Unity for South Africa, who is the only representative at NEDLAC. They, with government, wrote the constitution of NEDLAC, and they made provision for them only to be on NEDLAC. But it is a small portion. It's a small number of very large corporates that's on NEDLAC. It is corporates. And it's not at all reflective of South Africa's business. I think that generally business is against it. SMMEs work and live much closer to their workers. And it's not that simple just to tell your workers, unless you do that, you'll be fired. Now, let me just say this with regard to MTN that said they introduce it now. I would love to see MTN's plan It's not that simple. I mean, these guys come out and say, unless you do it, you're fired. I am pretty sure that none of them are actually complying with the legal requirements that's set out by the state, by the Department of Labor. But if I see that, I'll be satisfied, but I believe it's not the case. So, first of all, it is very difficult to introduce a blanket approach with regard to mandatory vaccinations. There is simply no such thing. That such a decision must be preceded by a consultation processes. A plan needs to be drafted, and that's very complex. And the individual by individual case study needs to be made, why it's necessary to do that, and whether there's any alternatives. This simple, broad stroke of a statement, I cannot see that stands.
Ultimately, though,
what we've said
let me just step in there, and I'll let you finish that thought. I just want to maximize on our time, and I'll let you finish that thought. Yeah. Ultimately, though, we're moving into the fourth wave. The numbers are growing, and there's a lot of pressure to get people vaccinated. So we know that there could be a meeting with the NCCC this week. What is it then that you want to hear as a plan on how we deal with encouraging vaccination moving forward if mandatory vaccinations isn't what you want to hear?
Madam, you know what? The principle is voluntary vaccination. You cannot force a person to be vaccinated. And if you say that unless you're vaccinated, you can't have a job, do they realize what is they about to launch in this country? Do you expect me to say that to my employees? I won't do that, with respect. And I've got a business to run, and is government saying you must force your employees to be vaccinated or they'll be fired? I'm telling government now I won't do it. I will break that law because it's immoral. The personal integrity, the bodily integrity of an individual is worth more the financial assets of a big business. And these corporates is so far apart from their own workers that they now go this far. Madam, South Africa won't die out with this virus. This Omicron variant, it's much less dangerous. We've seen one person died today. We're approaching the end of the virus. And now they want to introduce this. I'm worried. We're busy with an alternative agenda here. This is not necessary. Never in history has we dealt with a medical crisis in this manner.
Right.
Forcing people to subject themselves to this is simply wrong.
All right, Mr. Papenfush, your argument is very impassioned, and we really do thank you for giving us your time. That there is the Chief Executive of NIASA, Gerard Papenfush, and feel free to be part of that conversation as well. What do you say to government-mandated vaccinations? Tweet at ETV News SA. Send us your text messages, voice notes, and videos via WhatsApp. That number 082 777 0735, or you can email newsroom@etv.co.za. We're back.
Africa, historically, sub-Saharan Africa, has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so this is what it's fundamentally about. What I want to show you is how these structures are operating. It's just 20 minutes, so we can't do very much, but just to give you a little bit of an idea. And why I keep the ideology part there is because we are part of the producers of ideology. At universities and academic institutions, we are complicit in this whole enterprise. Okay, so the job of many Western academics is to convince Africans they have to keep doing what they're doing. Okay, and to show them it's your fault that you're poor. It's not our fault. It's your fault that you're poor. You know, so this is what we do in academic institutions, and I want to show that as well. We just
Kykie man. Rampies, jy dink seker ons almal is onnoosel, maar ons is nie. Onthou julle Rampies het Sondag gesê, we're going to remain on level 1. We will monitor this week to see the number of cases. And if we should surpass 10,000, we will reconsider a lockdown or a higher level. Ons is nie fucking gister gebore nie. Ewe skielik, die selfde maandag na die Sondag wat hy gepraat. Die dag net na dit. Net die dag na dit. Skielik 2,000 cases in Gauteng. 4,000 cases in Gauteng. 9,000 cases, eergister 11,000 cases in Gauteng. So nou wil julle nou vir ons sê hierdie nommers wat julle opgekook het in 'n pot kat skielik nou is going to justify to put us on a higher level just before Christmas. Spuit julle die fucking Optimus Prime variant in die mense se water of sit julle dit in die brood in of wat, want dis net te fucking snaaks hoe die ding nou so vinnig versprei het in dieselfde week wat julle nou glo sou monitor of hy gaan versprei of nie. Moenie kak soekie. Dit is so snaaks toe dit elections is en die mense so in lyne staan agter mekaar. Toe is daar fokol, toe is daar nie variant of COVID nie. Weet jy wat anders is snaaks? As die mense mos poskantoor toe gaan, julle weet mos as hulle se 350 gaan collect of disability of SASSA, whatever grant, ne, dan staan hulle op 'n hoop, bo op mekaar. Ek kan jou asem en jou spoegproe in my bekken, as jy hier agter my staan, so staan ons op 'n hoop. Dan gee die regering aan nie 'n fok om vir julle nie. Sien julle nie wat hier aangaan nie? Een van die goeie daar gaan nie meer leens oor is wat julle vir ons kan vertel nie, né? A government that's been stealing from you all the time, you suddenly trusting them. Skielik. Sê gou vir my, hoe maak dit sin? Verlede jaar toe sê hulle vir ons, jy mag nie op die strand is nie, né? You can't be on the beach because you're going to increase the numbers. It's a super spreader fucking event of an area of wat ook al, reg so. Net Sondag toe sê Cyril, please make sure you are rather in an open space. Oop. Daar moet lig is, there should be air, enough ventilation. What the fuck are you talking, huh? Jy kan nie jou fucking gat van jou neus af vertel nie, man. En moet my nie verkeerd verstaan nie, asseblief, daar is 'n virus. Niemand sê daar is nie 'n virus nie. We question the origin of the virus, and we question the spreading of the virus. And most definitely sal ons question die control wat hulle oor mense wil hê. Jy het agter jouself al jou lewe lank gekyk, skielik sal 'n regering wat nie 'n fok omgee as jy nog verkrag word nie, gaan hulle vir jou sê daar is 'n polisiewen om uit te stuur nie, hy gee nog vir jou om. Maak laat die goed sin maak asseblief. Jou kar moet roadworthy is, maar die road is nie car-worthy nie. Laat dit sin maak asseblief.
As I've trained as a physician scientist, we've been living this phenomenal digital and scientific revolution. And I'm here today to tell you that we're actually hacking the software of life and that it's changing the way we think about prevention and treatment of disease. So here's all the biology you need to know in 30 seconds. Our body is made out of organs, our organs are made out of cells, and in every cell, there's this thing called messenger RNA, or mRNA for short, that transmits the critical information from the DNA, our genes, to the protein, which is really the stuff we're all made out of. This is the critical information that determines what a cell will actually do. And so we think of it like an operating system. And it's not just in every cell of our body, it's actually in every cell of every organism alive. It's the same thing. And so if you could actually change that, which we call the software of life, if you could introduce a line of code or change a line of code, it turns out that has profound implications for everything.
Another immediate problem is indemnification. Pfizer has been hesitant to go into some of the countries because of the liability problems, or they don't have a liability shield. So we work with the countries to try to do that. But I think also some of the other vaccine manufacturers may be able to go into countries because they're operating through subsidiaries. This is all something that we're exploring. And our goal, my goal, is to have vaccines available for people throughout the developing world based on what their countries decide. We've got financing available, but the countries need to choose systems and then begin buying or receiving the vaccines.